It is. Aloha, this is Santa Surfing. Welcome to Beach Broadcast. Today is Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. Oh my goodness, we had a lot happen. I was a little overwhelmed. I didn't even have energy to record yesterday, so I'm going to make up for it today. Try to get you all caught up on all the stuff that's going on. Thanks so much for joining us on santasurfing.locals.com and on X, as well as a subscriber. So we have a lot to cover, and all it is big. This is going to be President Trump's his trade and tariff talks, his termination power that he has, how Comey and Brennan are now under investigation, finally, and DynCorp. That was a name that seems to have been quietly brought out by some podcasters, and now it seems to be the reason why President Trump wants us to focus on. It's the ties. The DynCorp is a government contractor with ties to Epstein. So let me just cover today's deltas because these seem relevant. There's a lot more on July 9th that has Epstein in it, but I just didn't include it in this thread. I just wanted to share the ones that were somewhat relevant to what we're going through. So Q3387, it starts with a video that got Trump elected. We talked about that the other day. The next 6 years. So the last 2 years, next 6 years. I went through this already in my last podcast. You were told what was going to happen. You were told what battles we face, strategic, pre-planned, patriots in control. The second delta we have is how the gold destroys the Fed. And we also talked about that on Monday, on the Monday's podcast, and Tuesday, if it's on Rumble podcast, that the gold destroys the Fed. And how Powell, too late is what we're going to call Jerome Powell. Too late is a little bit too late. There's rumors on social media today, as it was last month on June 2nd, and today that he was supposed to resign, but he hasn't resigned as of yet. He's still sitting around. But this is a Q post that says, do we have the gold? Yes, gold shall destroy the Fed, but so will crypto. July 9th Delta also is about JFK, and an anon asked if is JFK Jr. alive? The answer is no, Q. And then many of the anons were posting that in a George magazine, how JFK Jr. signed as JFK. And then they also said that when the senior is gone, then the junior, there is no junior. It's a JFK. Is JFK. Okay, so that was another thing that might, again, these are all hints of what's to come, but it kind of ties into some of the things that I'll share in my podcast today. President Trump, there's this delta. It was another delta today where it talks about the executive order of 13818, blocking the property of persons involved in serious human abuse, corruption, and crimes. Another one is on a huge Dem donor who's accused of human trafficking. The hunters become the hunted. The other one is this post from President Trump about the trade and tariff deals and how they had 90 days. This is back in April, and how they had 90 days to complete their deal. President Trump has sent out his letters to the countries that haven't cooperated as of yet. Out of the 75 nations, there's 20 that haven't cooperated, so he has sent out letters and gave a full demand. If they do not meet his demand, he's going to go ahead and name the terms, which is very big because the tariff funds have brought in $121 billion year to date, and they just started collecting tariffs in the last 2 to 3 months, and they anticipate $300 billion collected by the end of this year. And there's going to be a lot more. Again, those are just with the few nations that have worked out tariff deals. So President Trump, again, he is trying to replace the tariff dollar, the income tax dollars with the tariff funds, which is big. Then last night, this news broke. Old Wally, I call him Wally, you know why? There was a meme of him dressed in Walmart. He was saying, I'm going to Walmart, you need anything? And it was it. Well, anyway, I call him Wally. And James Comey, both John Brennan and James Comey, they're under investigation for the Russian hoax. Now, this is opening up Pandora's box. It will a little bit open here, and how big will it grow? Remember who was connected to the Russian hoax, how they were investigating. They had a special prosecutor appointed to investigate Trump on the Russian hoax. Now we learned that, and again, you all had posted it, but the news finally came out with that the Russian hoax was a big old hoax, right? That came out mid last year. And then now it's finally coming out. President Trump is back in office in the public eye, and now these dweebs are being investigated. But remember, the special prosecutor on that was Bob Mueller. Stay with me on this one because it does have a connection, okay? Now, remember this too. On this is a delta of September 11th, where it had James Comey and John Brennan, and it was listed 50 times. James Comey treason, John Brennan treason. Makes me wonder how many acts of treason did they commit. Again, it goes back to, we talked about this on our Locals Live yesterday. We talked how many different crimes of life sentences does a person need, or the death penalty trials are needed, right? If a person commits 50 crimes and they all have the penalty of the death penalty or of a life sentence, how many do they really need to have it stick, right? And I think that's why President Trump talks about Al Capone a lot. So we now know that Brennan and Comey, they're very, very dirty, and suddenly their names appear after all these years. Their names pop up as being investigated. Will this whole rabbit hole lead to the connection of Epstein, child trafficking, and government-funded child and sex trafficking? Some of you have reported this. Again, we have been waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen, and you all have done your great work in putting all of this out there. Now it's finally coming out through the media, through Congress, through Trump, President Trump or his team. Now it's finally coming out. So since fake news stays silent about the crimes against humanity and all their buddies involved, right? You know how that is. We already saw Amy Robach. She got caught on ABC News and how she said she had the Epstein file. She's more upset about not having the story than she was about what happened to the children and the people there on the island. She named names. The media was silent. They didn't say a word, right? You didn't hear him. It didn't make the headlines. It didn't flood that Bill Clinton was there and all these other big names were there. No, she made the comment. It was exposed. Nothing happened because the fake news, they stick together with their the fake news criminals stick together with their criminal buddies. Now, so how do you get them to demand a release of the Epstein files, and how big is the Epstein file? Run a misinformation program on them and let them lose their minds with their buddies' freedom, meaning that if Elon went out there and said Trump is in the Epstein files, we know that Trump is in the flight log. Did he make it to the Epstein Island? No. But the Democrats don't know that, and the liberals don't want to know that. They want to see the files, the Epstein files. They want to see the names, and many anons want to see the names. But I'm going to ask you this: what if it was a lot bigger than that, just that, right? Because we know they did horrible things, horrid sacrifices on children and human life and destroying life. But it's a little bit bigger than that. So there was a post, and it made me do a little digging, and I really want to thank the person, and I'll mention that in this dive right here. So if you think of the swamp, you think of all the things that live in the swamp. A toad is one of them. That's what Epstein was. Jeffrey Epstein himself. He was a toad in the whole big swamp story. Is what my opinion. You decide. Okay. It's all in the flight log, the planes, a government contract with dirty ties to the CIA, to their actions. So I'm going to go through this and plow through this as quick as I can. In Florida, Epstein was charged in 2008 for his really sick crimes. However, Epstein, he struck a plea deal in 2008, so it dodged a life sentence for his trafficking crimes. This is just an article about that. Okay. Now, FBI was investigating 36 young girls, and Epstein agreed to rat out Wall Street hedge fund executives for laundering money. Then the feds agreed to bury the federal charges. And here's FBI admits Epstein is their informant. Okay, here. So Thomas Paine put this together. I want to thank you, Thomas Paine, for putting this together. I'm going to just share the bigger picture here. Okay. In this plea deal, dated September 18th of 2008, has some redacted information. The title is General Forfeiture Matters, Jeffrey Epstein, WSTA Child Prostitution. I'm just going to go down to this paragraph right here. On September 11th, of '08, case agent advised writer that Epstein is currently being prosecuted by the state of Florida and is complying with all the conditions of his plea with the state of Florida. Epstein has also provided information to the FBI as agreed upon. Case agent advised that no federal prosecution will occur in this matter as long as Epstein continues to uphold his agreement with the state of Florida. Stay with me, all right? Because think about how many times Epstein ended up going to his island with passengers on the plane that both victims and also the perpetrators, right? Now let's fast forward 15 years later. J.P. Morgan had to settle a case, and it was a child trafficking case. And they settled for $290 million, but JP Morgan, they had more power and money than anybody out there on the planet at one point, and they would have found a way to make this, silence this story, get rid of it, right? But it didn't happen this time. It actually, I said stuck, it stayed, right? Okay. So now let's go back to July 19th Delta. One of the deltas for today is the flight log. Now, this is an anon that posted the flight log, and Q reposted it. It didn't say the names on the flight log. It didn't say the people on the flight log. It just said the flight log. That's where I started to go through a rabbit hole, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is a little bit bigger. It's a DynCorp, D-Y-N, core plane. If you want to do a little digging, check on DynCorp. You can use yandex.com, which is a search engine. It's yandex.com, and it gives you a lot more information to find. Okay, so let's go into the flight log. Who and what is DynCorp? DynCorp is a private military contractor with close ties to the CIA. DynCorp has been implicated in trafficking children all over the world and many other criminal activity. I'll get to that in a moment. Epstein used DynCorp planes. Are you with me? It's an active government contractor. DynCorp trafficked children and also created vaccines, but I'll get to that in a moment. This is a tail number of a DynCorp plane. Are you with me? So there is this general contractor, again, paid by the government, using the plane to go to Epstein's island with victims and with bad people on the plane. Are you with me? The government paid for that. That's what's the big story. Again, it's a part of the CIA. Just to give you an example, I know this is tiny print, but you can go ahead and look at the article page to find this. DynCorp had contracts with several different agencies, but here is just a list, an example of some of the agencies, and the list keeps going on and on and on and on, but it goes with the DOD, even the Department of State, right? The Secretary of State. Okay. It keeps going on. Department of Agriculture, the EPA. DynCorp had a tremendous amount of power. From what I've read, it's been paid well over $7 billion in government contracts. So the big hat tip is to Truken, and she wrote, someone with reach steal this. Okay, and what she posted was, according to the documents filed with the U.S. federal court in West Palm Beach, Florida, Epstein shared the tail number of a Bell Long Ranger helicopter with a U.S. Department OV-10D Bronco aircraft registered with DynCorp, a private military company accused of human trafficking. There's the tail numbers used, all right? Was Epstein sending out a comm because he had to work out a plea deal, right? Was he sending out a comm and they had to track all of this? And was he saying, hey, I got a load or whatever? Okay, I don't know, but it is a lot bigger. So she also posted, excuse me, let me toggle up here. She also posted this. It was she posted just a screenshot of this representative, a congressperson, and this congressperson, Cynthia McKinney, she grills Donald Rumsfeld and didn't hold back. I'm going to go ahead and play this clip here. It's pretty eye-opening how Donald Rumsfeld was very evasive, but she had said that, well, you'll listen to it, and what the information that she brings up, and if you want to see the full video, you can click on this link right here. There's a part transcript, and then the full video link is right in this link right here. I'm going to go ahead and play this for you because it kind of gives you an idea of how dirty the government was under the Bush administration.
Mr. Secretary, I watched President Bush deliver a moving speech at the United Nations in September 2003, in which he mentioned the crisis of the sex trade. The president called for the punishment of those involved in this horrible business. But at the very moment of that speech, DynCorp was exposed for having been involved in the buying and selling of young women and children. While all of this was going on, DynCorp kept the Pentagon contract to administer the smallpox and anthrax vaccines and is now working on a plague vaccine through the Joint Vaccine Acquisition Program. Mr. Secretary, is it policy of the U.S. government to reward companies that traffic in women and little girls? That's my first question. My second question, Mr. Secretary, according to the Comptroller General of the United States, there are serious financial management problems at the Pentagon, to which Mr. Cooper alluded. Fiscal year 1999, 2.3 trillion missing. Fiscal year 2000, 1.1 trillion missing. And DOD is the number one reason why the government can't balance its checkbook. The Pentagon has claimed year after year that the reason it can't account for the money is because its computers don't communicate with each other. My second question, Mr. Secretary, is who has the contracts today to make those systems communicate with each other? How long have they had those contracts? And how much have the taxpayers paid for them? Finally, Mr. Secretary, after the last hearing, I thought that my office was promised a written response to my question regarding the 4 war games on September 11th. I have not yet received that response, but would like for you to respond to the questions that I've put to you today, and then I do expect the written response to my previous question, hopefully by the end of the week.
Thank you, Representative. First, the answer to your first question is no, absolutely not. The policy of the United States government is clear, unambiguous, and opposed to the activities that you described. The second question.
Well, how do you explain the fact that DynCorp and its successor companies have received and continue to receive government contracts?
I would have to go and find the facts, but there are laws and rules and regulations with respect to government contracts. And there are times that corporations do things they should not do, in which case they tend to be suspended for some period. There are times then that under the laws and the rules and regulations that passed by the Congress and implemented by the executive branch, that corporations can get off of out of the penalty box, if you will, and be permitted to engage in contracts with the government. They're not generally not barred in perpetuity.
This company was never in the penalty box. If you could proceed to my second question, please.
The second question.
So Donald Rumsfeld, he evades it. He passes it on to some other person, and she is saying, well, we couldn't connect the IT department. We couldn't connect it. So that's, she couldn't give a straight answer for the missing 3.3 total trillion dollars. And in sum, it was in sum, Donald Rumsfeld was given this opportunity to talk about this particular topic back in 2009, September 10th of 2001. On September 11th, we had the horrible disaster happen with the Twin Towers, 9/11. And then here we are, fast forward, 4 years later, he gets questioned again. Okay, so this is now, we're running this into the Bush administration, and then it eventually rolls into the Obama administration. But he goes ahead. If you want to listen to the full clip, you can go ahead and listen to it. It's in the article link below. Then my question I have is, how in the world was a one government contractor able to get contracts from several different agencies? I'm just going to open up this link. Again, I'm just curious, is this the path we need to go down? Because it's a lot bigger than one name. Does this make sense? DynCorp began in 1946. It was a small project, and then it evolved into where it is right now, or was. DynCorp was started in 1946. The CIA was formed in 1947. And the creation of Israel was in 1948. Are you with me? So the different departments, agencies that DynCorp worked with was the CDC, the Department of Agriculture, Food, the FDA, the National Institute of Health. This is Fauci's organization, Environment, the EPA, the DOJ, and the Security and Exchange, and they were able to access emails and digital communications and other sensitive information, including about ongoing investigations, for an example, Enron. All right. They also worked on vaccines. They received a $322 million contract to develop a vaccine that was used by the Department of Defense against anthrax and smallpox. Again, we know how dirty these companies play. We know how the dirty big pharmaceutical companies play, right? They go ahead and release a pathogen or something bad, and then they also come up with the virus or the cure, but either way, they were trying to do what they could to destroy humanity. A couple of other things that DynCorp did was they developed spy software. They had sex trafficking of children in Bosnia and elsewhere. One of Jeffrey Epstein's suspected trafficking aircraft shared the same tail number. Again, this is all information that many of you may have shared in the past. They also were involved with DynCorp trained the post-Saddam police force in Iraq after the 2003 invasion. And they even had mercenaries. 150 DynCorp mercenaries were used GPS equipment to map Yugoslav military and civilian infrastructure for the planned NATO bombing campaign. Oh, and by the way, UN was formed after DynCorp as well. So think about how dirty, how ugly this is, right? Now let's fast forward to this year. President Trump, he was with Robert Kennedy at the White House, and he talked about the rise of autism from the past 20 years ago. It went from 1 to 10,000 to 1 to 34. He even tweeted about that. 20 years ago, autism in children was 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 24 or 1 in 34. Something's really wrong. We need Bobby. Thank you, DJT. Well, connect the dots. If DynCorp was involved in child and sex trafficking, they could care less about human life. They just care to destroy it, destroy their lives, their livelihoods. And then in this case here with the vaccines, use deductive reasoning. If that is the case, then were these vaccines that they created the cause of the rise of autism? Because I know when I was a kid, I didn't go to school with other children that had autism. It wasn't common. Today, it's very common, and it's very heartbreaking for the child and for the families. And so now they're exposing DynCorp, again, a government contractor. I already talked about their different activities that they're in, but they worked against helping humanity and they worked against helping America. Yet they were a government contractor. Again, we know Rumsfeld was dirty. And where did the $3.3 trillion go? Did it go to funding their side businesses, funding the child and sex trafficking? Obviously, they provided planes for this child and sex trafficking. How much more did they provide? And what really did happen at Epstein Island? Were they doing MK Ultra activities over there? Were they doing, I don't know, were they doing something a little bit bigger than what we were aware of, right? Again, let's think about how big this is. Pam Bondi, she had her blunders, okay? So she says back in February, I got the list, and all of a sudden she had amnesia on July 8th and yesterday during the cabinet meeting, and she says something different. I'm just going to play a short clip from yesterday and, of course, a short clip from February 27th. Check this out.
Maybe releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen? It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet. Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day.
Okay, so she said that there was nothing that shocked her. Obviously, she hadn't had time to go take a look at this, and then we have this that comes out now. And stay with me on this here, okay? So a lot of people are like, they're just, oh my gosh, what's going on with Pam Bondi? Okay, including myself, right? But are her blunders intentional to expose herself and possibly get the left and the fake news to rip into her and say, look who Trump hires, and you see where this is going, and force them to release the files, and how now we're beginning to understand exactly how big the files are. It's not just the names, it's a lot bigger, right? So on Sunday night, again, this is my very brief elephant in the room segment on Monday's podcast. On Sunday night, Axios reported the files vanished, they disappeared, they actually pulled a Casper, they're gone, gonzo. Case was closed. The very next day, the case was closed by the FBI, DOJ. Bye-bye, no more. We know Space Force has it all, and guess what? You have a lot as well. So how can you fulfill, how can the full Epstein files be released that implicates the Bush administrations, plural, Obama administration, for their crimes against humanity, and all the crimes against humanity from the big banks, the entities, the politicians, etc., etc., etc. You release the Epstein and DynCorp files. That's how you do it, right? So get them to go crazy, get them to get angry at Pam Bondi, whether she's a good person or a bad person, or this Bondi 2.0, whatever she is. But President Trump, he was hinting yesterday. He finally came out. It's like we were waiting for a lot of his posts. He came out yesterday and he says on his burner account, the Pappy Trumpo El Donato account, he's hinting, should we fire Pam Bondi? Okay. And then he says, now we got fake news demanding the Epstein files. Okay. So it's a brilliant, brilliant move. So all of that I just shared with you, you can find it. It's in all different documents. It's all proof that the dirty government, they helped facilitate the Epstein child sex trafficking crimes. They hire a government contractor, DynCorp, and the rabbit hole for DynCorp leads to many other crimes they committed. The dirty government never paused their services. They just continued to run with it. So will the Brennan and Comey, now that they're under investigation, will it show any kind of involvement in DynCorp? And will their ties via the plea deal with Epstein that was signed with the FBI that Epstein had signed, will any of their criminal activity, talking about Brennan and Comey's activity, be under something that maybe Epstein has, or that DynCorp, or that somebody has? Did they know about DynCorp? Did they know about the trafficking? We know they knew. It's just a matter of getting it out there, and again, how big this rabbit hole is. And then wait till again, all roads lead to Obama, so we'll have to wait for more news on that. Then, okay, remember we talked about Robert Mueller about 15 minutes ago? Well, the FBI director that agreed to the deal with Epstein was none other than Bob Mueller. Now, the special prosecutor investigated Trump for the Russian hoax. That never happened, but the hoax was it was caused by the dirty people, the Clinton, the Comey, the Brennans, and that's what they're being investigated for. You know, those roads, the Brennan and Comey investigation is going to lead to Hillary. But we never got the details about the report, more of the details. There was nothing that it couldn't point to Trump, and it was definitely crickets on the bad player. So let's go back to DynCorp let's just go back to Epstein. Sorry, because my mind's going crazy right now. Was this whole Epstein and DynCorp used to store secrets? Secrets from other countries, secrets about working with other countries? You see where I'm going? And I will find it very interesting, the timing of President Trump to have Bibi Netanyahu at the White House the day after the news broke that the DOJ, FBI closed the Epstein case. The timing of Bibi visiting is really, really interesting. And now look at this picture. This is posted by the White House. Okay. Take a look at this. Okay, you see President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. And look at this picture in the background. Who is that? Isn't that Jackie Kennedy? It sure looks like it. It sure looks like it, yeah. So we have a gold, and we have her in gold, and President Trump. Now let's tie it into some of the news that's breaking just as I'm putting this podcast together. So does the Epstein case tie into the CIA, the crimes against humanity, the dirty people, the dirty government, the 9/11 files, the JFK, etc., etc.? You see where this is going? Remember Q posted this back in, it was back in 2017, November 20th. This is an anon that posted this, and Q was very excited about it. You guys are missing the importance of Hugh Hefner. Think of it this way. Hugh invites over celebrities and politicians. Hugh offers them something younger. Hugh offers them a safe place to do it in. Hugh tapes encounter, sends tapes to CIA. CIA has person by the you-know-what for life. This is majorly important to what has been keeping people in control for so long. And Q replied with 4 exclamation points. Then it makes you wonder, all right, that happened. The CIA had blackmail information. Did Epstein now have blackmail information on the CIA? That's where my mind is going. Again, you have to decide. Was this whole operation a sting when Epstein got caught and he had to sign a deal? Did he end up doing a sting operation on the CIA and using this criminal Epstein? And did Epstein use airplane tail numbers or use their airplanes itself to send a comm that the government-funded planes were used for trafficking? That's how big this is, all right? So President Trump, this is really a big day for him. He had a cabinet meeting yesterday. He mentions this, so I'm changing topics, okay? So enough about that. I'm done with talking about Epstein, okay? Because, I really don't like talking about that stuff because of the innocent lives that are affected, and it really is painful. President Trump, let's talk about this. He was at his cabinet meeting, had a really powerful meeting, and he says this about running D.C. Check this out.
We have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to. We could run D.C. I mean, we're looking at D.C. We don't want crime in D.C. We want the city to run well. Susie Wiles is working very closely with the mayor, and they're doing all right. I mean, in the sense that we would run it so good, it would be run so proper. We'd get the best person to run it. The crime would be down to a minimal, would be much less. And we're thinking about doing it. To be honest with you, we want a capital that's run flawlessly, and it wouldn't be hard for us to do it. And we've had a good relationship with the mayor, and we're testing it to see if it works. But New York City will run properly. We're going to bring New York back. I love New York.
When I heard that, I was like, yes, yes. Can you imagine? Okay, so you're wondering, okay, how does he get it done? Right? And we already know that SCOTUS made a ruling back on June 27th that the judges can't file an injunction. We know that the OBB bill, yeah, excuse me. They have a section 70302 that the liberal nutheads, they can't go ahead and file a TRO or try to stop Trump from doing what he needs to do. Then President Trump says, I can run DC. We can run DC. Okay, how big is that? And then it was this. Supreme Court, an 8-1 vote. They give Trump the green light to cut federal workforce. This is a really nice title to this. It's basically saying Trump can fire their you-know-whats. He can fire federal employees now. Oh my God. Man, and this is a Rum Runner favorite gift that Rum uses. So, hello Rum. Okay, this was big. This was so big because, okay, he can Do you see where this is going? He brings somebody on, they don't turn out, he can easily fire them. Yes, he had that right in the first place, but now SCOTUS just confirms it, affirms it, and says, yeah, go ahead and do what you need to do. You're the commander-in-chief, you're the boss, go ahead. That is a huge ruling. He's got big rulings on his side. So I asked, does this mean he can fire Jerome Powell? So a lot of you said, well, technically he can't because the Federal Reserve is not, see where Trump is going, is not part of the federal government. Is President Trump opening up Pandora's box? Okay, so let's just say choice A, they're going to run with Federal Reserve is not a part of the federal government. Can you imagine the people, the sleepy 95% of the population, they're sitting there going, huh? Federal Reserve was never federal and doesn't have a reserve and has been this private entity, and they have these central banks, all of these central banks around the country that are controlling them and charging them interest. Okay, do you see where this is going? All right, did President Trump just open up Pandora's box by going after Jerome Powell and saying, too late, he's an idiot, he's a dingbat, whatever he says, too late, he calls him too late Jerome Powell. So there's choice A. Choice B is, what if he does get fired? Will Jerome Powell say, you can't fire me because I'm technically not a federal employee? And then that opens up the same Pandora's box. Either way, Trump wins. This dude is going to be out of the picture at some point, and we don't know when, but he's got to get out of the picture because President Trump had posted a tweet saying, we should be 3 points less for the interest rates. We should be 3 points less. So if we're at 4.5%, he's implying that President Trump is implying we should be at 1.5%. And this dude won't reduce it. We don't have the inflation like we had with Biden. And now we don't have a lot of things that under the Biden regime. Why isn't he not reducing it, right? Again, just exposing the corruption and the crimes. So I have a lot to cover for the financial segment of this because I'm going to roll this part of the podcast into tomorrow's my next podcast, which is really big on what President Trump did and Truth Social did and what's going on with Brad Garlinghouse and Ripple and XRP. And oh my gosh, it's really big. But does all of a sudden this become moot? Does the Federal Reserve conversation become moot because of everything that's going to be rolling out? That's what the big news is. And President Trump through Eldorado posted a picture of him with popcorn. It says, make sure you enjoy the ride. You bet, Mr. Boss Man, we will enjoy the ride. This is going to be one heck of a ride. I remember you had said it's going to be the most entertaining outcome. How we get there, when we get there, we've gone this far, we'll wait as long as we need to in order for all of this stuff, big stuff, to start rolling out and making our lives just awesome. Just awesome. I'm not even going to say again, we've never had an awesome life because we've always had the ties to the Federal Reserve and all the other slavery parts. And now one by one is all falling down. And it's like awesome. And I want to say thank you so much, President Trump. Thank you, White Hats. Thank you, military. Thank you, Border Patrol and ICE agents. Thank you, our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, those on the front lines. Thank you. And I want to thank Anons. You were on the front line this whole time. And I want to just say thank you. There's so much more news, but this is the big part of the news I just wanted to cover for today. So I will have a podcast tomorrow. And my podcasts on Rumble are running a day late, unfortunately, because of my technical issues. So rather than me waiting for hours, I just go ahead and publish it and then just put it out there the next day. Okay, so thanks so much for listening. Let's see what the surprises are for today. But it did look like that this 6-year mark, it happened, and it's now a matter of watching it all roll out. So God bless you abundantly. Thanks so much for waiting for this podcast. I will have a show very, very soon. Aloha.